The energy inside the Capitol was heavier than usual that morning, thick with whispers, bright camera lights, and the nervous shifting of staffers who understood that something unusual was about to happen. Even the marble columns lining the hallway seemed to listen, as if they expected the storm forming inside the committee chamber. The hearing was scheduled as a routine oversight session, at least on paper. But when Hillary Clinton walked into the room with her usual practiced poise, a faint, almost imperceptible tension flashed in her eyes. She wasn't new to committees, confrontations, or controversies. But today felt different. Even she could sense it. Senator John Kennedy sat already in his leather chair, flipping through a stack of old binders with little colored tabs poking out like flags. His calm expression didn't match the intensity with which he turned the pages. To him, this wasn't just another political event. It was a moment that had been waiting far too long to happen. The cameras clicked rapidly as Hillary took her seat. She didn't look his way, but she knew he was preparing something. He always prepared something. Kennedy leaned back slightly, glasses low on his nose, and observed her silently. "Well," he finally muttered under his breath, "this is about to be as lively as a tornado in a trailer park." The committee chair banged the gavel. "Secretary Clinton, Senator Kennedy, you are recognized." Hillary clasped her hands on the table, her confidence radiating outward. "Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to clarify any concerns regarding my decisions, actions, or conduct." Kennedy tapped the stack of binders. "Clarify. Ma'am, I hope you brought more than clarity. You'll be needing memory, honesty, and maybe a touch of humility." A ripple of quiet laughter spread through the audience, but Hillary didn't react. Her chin lifted slightly, a habit she'd developed years ago whenever her authority was questioned. "Senator Kennedy," she said with a calmness that felt almost too controlled, "if you have specific concerns, I invite you to address them." "Oh, I have specifics," he replied, opening the first binder. "In fact, I brought enough specifics to fill a small library." The room tensed. The cameras zoomed in. "Let's begin with something simple," Kennedy said, adjusting his glasses. "You stated last month that certain decisions you made were justified because, and I quote, the data reflected no significant security risk." "Yes," she answered confidently. Kennedy turned 3 pages. "Ma'am, this is the data you cited." He slid a printed chart forward. "Except there's a teensy problem, this document is dated 3 months after the decision you claim it guided. In other words, you used data that didn't exist yet." Hillary blinked. Her lips parted slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Senator, you are misinterpreting." "No, ma'am," he cut in gently. "I'm reading the date. Numbers don't lie. The question is whether the people using them do." Gasps echoed through the room. Hillary's staff shifted uneasily behind her. She drew a breath. That data was part of an ongoing review, and, "Ma'am, with respect," Kennedy said, raising a hand, "you could butter that explanation up all day long, but it still won't turn into a biscuit." The gallery erupted again. Even the chair fought a smile. Kennedy pushed the second binder forward. "Now, onto your statements about the funding allocations. You said that budgetary constraints prevented you from approving additional oversight personnel." "That's correct." She straightened. Kennedy flipped the binder open to a highlighted section. "Except here we have your office approving a multi-million-dollar consulting contract during the exact same period, money that could have funded an entire oversight division twice over." Hillary's face froze for a moment. That contract was for a necessary organizational analysis. Kennedy stared at her like he was trying to understand a bizarre puzzle. "Ma'am, this organizational analysis was 47 pages, half of which were clip art graphics and generic corporate slogans like, 'Synergy builds momentum.'" A few snorts of laughter escaped from the gallery. Kennedy leaned forward. "You paid $8 million for a PowerPoint presentation that could have been made by a teenager with a laptop and a free trial of Microsoft Office." Hillary clenched her jaw. "Senator, you're oversimplifying." "If anything, I'm undersimplifying," Kennedy said. "Because if I said what I really thought about this contract, we'd all be here till Christmas." Hillary inhaled sharply, and for the first time, a tiny bead of frustration slipped through her composure. "Senator," she began slowly, "you're framing events selectively to paint a distorted picture." Kennedy paused, letting the accusation hang in the air. Then, with the slightest grin, he said, "Ma'am, I don't need to paint anything. The facts already drew the picture. I'm just holding it up so the light hits it. The chair tapped the gavel. Let's maintain decorum. Kennedy nodded. Absolutely. He opened the third binder. Now, this next part might sting a little, so brace yourself. The audience leaned forward as Kennedy slid yet another document forward. You told this committee, under oath, mind you, that communication protocols were followed at all times. Yes, Hillary said firmly. They were. Kennedy raised the document. Then could you explain this email chain, where you explicitly bypassed the entire security review process and personally authorized a communication route classified as high risk by your own team? Hillary's eyes flickered. Her throat tightened. That decision was made in urgency under difficult circ. And yet, Kennedy interjected smoothly, the timestamp shows the authorization occurred at 9:14 a.m. on a day when there were no crises, no briefings, no emergency calls, and, according to your own calendar, you were at a yoga session titled, Midweek Mindfulness. The gallery erupted into stunned laughter. A few reporters exchanged wide-eyed looks. Hillary's cheeks reddened. Her composure cracked like a thin layer of ice under pressure. Senator Kennedy, she said tightly, I'm not here to indulge your theatrical interrogations. Well, ma'am, Kennedy replied, leaning back, that's a shame, because you're giving one heck of a performance. The room buzzed with electricity. Hillary shot back, your insinuations are disrespectful to the responsibilities I carried and the decisions I had to make under extraordinary circumstances. Kennedy folded his hands. Ma'am, I'm not questioning your responsibilities. I'm questioning your explanations. His voice deepened, steady. Because for someone who claims to stand by the facts, you sure keep tripping over them. The tension peaked. Even the air felt hot. One of Hillary's aides subtly gestured for her to remain calm, but she shook her head almost imperceptibly. She had no intention of appearing intimidated. Senator, she said sharply, you're ignoring context. Kennedy nodded thoughtfully. Okay, ma'am, let's talk context. He pulled out a small notebook from his jacket pocket. This notebook contains every instance in the last 3 years where your explanations contradicted documented timelines, security briefings, or budgetary realities. Every single one is footnoted, cross-referenced, and verified. He dropped the notebook onto the table with a soft thud that somehow echoed louder than any shout. You want context. There's context. The room went silent. Hillary stared at the notebook as if it had materialized out of thin air. Kennedy's preparation was legendary, but this was brutal. I'm not going to sit here and let you twist facts for political theater, she said quietly, but her voice trembled slightly. Kennedy's reply was calm, almost gentle. Ma'am, the facts aren't twisted. They're just inconvenient. He leaned in, his voice lowering. And inconvenient facts have a funny habit. They don't disappear just because powerful people don't like them. The sentence landed like a hammer. Hillary's confidence deflated. Not entirely, but visibly. She had walked into the chamber expecting tough questions, yes, but not this relentless, precise avalanche of documented contradictions. The chair tried to move the proceedings along. Senator Kennedy, your time is nearly expired. Kennedy nodded once. Just one more thing. He turned the final page of the binder. Secretary Clinton, last month you claimed you never received communication regarding the disputed oversight procedures. She nodded. Correct. Kennedy lifted another document. This is your digital signature acknowledging receipt. Dated and timestamped. And ma'am, he paused for effect. Your signature is still on the bottom. Unless, of course, someone forged your handwriting and somehow learned your private authorization code. Hillary froze. The gallery gasped loudly. Kennedy closed the binder slowly. So, help me understand how you never received something you personally signed for. A long, unbearable silence stretched. Hillary opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. No words came. The answer she wanted to give didn't exist. And the excuses she could use would only dig her deeper. Kennedy watched her for a moment, then spoke softly. Ma'am, I didn't come here to embarrass you. You did that part yourself. The blow landed so cleanly that even the chair, even the staffers, even the reporters didn't know how to react. Kennedy stood, gathering his binders. My goal here is simple: accountability. The American people deserve answers that match reality, not rehearsed talking points that collapse at the slightest tug. He packed his papers, adjusted his glasses, and added, and ma'am, with all due respect, facts don't care how important someone thinks they are. He walked away from the microphone. Hillary sat motionless, her expression a mixture of shock, frustration, and disbelief. For the first time in years, she looked genuinely rattled, not by an accusation, not by an insinuation, but by an unyielding wall of facts placed in front of her one after another. The chair dismissed the session. As Kennedy left the chamber, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. He waved them off politely. "Not today," he said. The facts spoke loud enough. And indeed, they had. Inside the chamber, Hillary remained seated for a moment longer, staring at the notebook Kennedy had dropped on the table. One small notebook filled with facts that, in a single morning, had shaken the unshakable. Slowly, she exhaled. Nothing she said outside the chamber could erase what had just happened. Because in front of cameras, colleagues, and the country, John Kennedy had just humiliated Hillary Clinton, not with insults, but with facts.